The Blue Blood, a story by Slime Special 681, Chapter 1. Prince Dura was kneeling before the massive statue of Hele. His lips moved slightly, but no sound could be heard throughout the temple. "Captain," Sergeant Kima called while approaching from behind. She stopped just short of him as he continued praying. "The Empress has summoned the Golden Glaives to stand before her." "The upcoming campaign," he whispered softly. "I believe so, sir." The young man took a look up into the hollow eyes of the visage of the god Warus before sighing and rising slowly. "I'll never understand why you choose to pray to Hela before a battle." Dura turned to meet her gaze. It's just that I think your prayers would be better spent with Derpna, my lord. The campaign is in the far reaches of known space, and she's known to actually listen." She trailed off as Dura walked just past her and firmly planted his hand on her left shoulder. At 6'10", the prince was unusually tall for a male Shivanti, and it allowed him to project authority in a way that most women simply weren't mentally equipped for. The touch was a small gesture often expressed by Shivanti fathers to their young children as an unspoken sign of power and authority. Growing tall enough for one's father not to easily reach one's shoulder was a sign of maturity and a source of immense pride for any Shivanti woman. To have a male so easily place a hand on her shoulder at full height was a somewhat humbling experience for Sergeant Kima, and it gave her a pause. "Derpna may serve the Empress when called upon, but Hela serves no one. That is why I ask for her support and continued favor upon the Empress, for no one can demand it." With that, he let his hand slide off her shoulder as he resumed walking. After taking a second to reflect upon the massive statue of the chaotic war god, she fell in behind him. The throne room was packed. The Golden Glaives stood with each of their captains in 4 groups of 100. Each of them held a gold-crested glaive at attention and spotted a plasma pistol at the hip. A group stood at either side of the throne, the golden highlights of their armor casting light ever so slightly as they faced forward. The other 2 stood lining the walls behind the crown. To the left and just behind the throne stood the 5th and 6th princess in royal garb. Their combined guard retinues, numbering no more than 30, stood between them and the Golden Glaives in a vain attempt to project a sense of power and confidence. To the right and slightly behind the throne stood 8 representatives of each of the military branches. In front of the throne and back a dozen feet stood the various nobles in attendance and their attendants. Upon the throne and above the throng sat the Empress. A 2nd-story balcony circled the room, and from there stood the royal consorts. Directly before the throne kneeled the 2nd princess and 2 of her advisors. "My Empress, the fleets are ready to set sail. I need only your nod," the 2nd princess stated with a slightly bowed head. Years of planning and promising political favors had come to this moment. The Empress sat clad in her ceremonial armor, everything but her mouth and lower jaw hidden. Her expression solid and unmoving as she seemingly looked past her daughter. The princess couldn't help but sweat. Her younger sister had not sat idle while this campaign materialized. They'd handicapped her attempts to rally support for her proposed invasion of Earth, even come close to replacing her at its head. With her father's help, she'd beaten back each attempt in due course. Unfortunately, she had not managed to do so before they had thoroughly dragged her name through the mud. Now, even mentioning her personal name was seen as a taboo. To do so, even with her title included, brought hushed whispers and barely stifled jeers. Everything depended on the Empress's nod on this campaign. "You have my blessing if you take Prince Dora with you on this campaign. He will enter the Imperial selection soon. I trust you will give him the needed learning experience to thrive in the future." From the corner of her eye, the 2nd princess could see Dura blanch ever so slightly. Apparently, he had not expected this turn of events either. The second princess would not want to pass up an opportunity to eliminate a rival, however. Unable to contain her growing smile, she simply stated, "Of course, my empress." After the crowd had dissipated, and the empress retired to her study, the prince followed her there. He entered shortly after her, and stood waiting for her to acknowledge him. She, however, elected to pick up an old book and started reading instead. "Queen, mother," Dura addressed in a cold tone. The empress didn't stop reading, but she did gesture at him with her free hand. "Why am I being sent to serve under the second princess?" He had an idea as to the answer, but he wanted to hear her admit it. "Was my reasoning with your sister not self-explanatory?" "No, it was not." "You lack the ambition to rule. You meekly standing there like a castrated thorax is a perfect example of this. Your sister, goddess, even your brother would have demanded I acknowledge them the moment they walk in. She is brutal. She is efficient. She will try to kill me." She sighed before casually bothering to look up from the book. "You need to learn to despise servitude if you are to survive. I cannot think of a better person than her to teach you that." "Give me the guard." "Excuse me?" "She accepted a captain of the Golden Glaives. Give me the guard."